spotlighting you now.
Ask if there's any questions. Any questions that we need to answer.
Well, you want to give us a
Are any
rundown?
of you calligraphers or interested in calligraphy?
I am.
Thank you, Alvaro. I appreciate. He's waving at me and nodding. That's really nice.
Why don't you? Guess you could put out your tools and ask if you guys had questions about them.
I'm good, thanks.
All right.
Oh, there's a hand up over there. Thank you. It's not showing me everybody, so I can't see reactions. That's okay. Dave.
Go up to view for you.
Yeah.
Gallery. Now you're still spotlighted for everybody, but you can see everybody in the gallery.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Well, I'll show you what I'm going to show everybody at 8:30, just in case anybody's late for me. I'm going to show the different types of, since this is a pen group and not a calligraphy group, I thought I would try to talk about the different kinds of pens for people who just want to improve their handwriting a little bit and have started using, oh, there you go, have started using vintage pens for that purpose. I'm a vintage pen collector and a member of the pen club and owner of an art supply store, so I have a perhaps unique position on all that and understanding. It's a little early in the morning for me to be totally prepared, but I've come as well prepared as I can. Without going into brushes and markers and other types of calligraphy tools, I thought I would talk about straight dip pens and oblique dip pens and fountain pens, of which my favorite at the moment is the Pilot Parallel. So now that they've thrown me up in front of the screen early, let's see what I can do. I've always wanted to talk to the group at one of the pen shows about paper and ink too, specifically for calligraphy, not for fountain pens. And I usually say that if there's a paper that someone has to have something written on, like envelopes, for example, if you're addressing envelopes, that there's an ink to match that paper. And if there's a certain liquid that or fluid that a piece of lettering needs to be written in, like the blood of your enemy or something like that, thank you, that there's always a paper that you can find for that too. And then last week I got a little envelope job and it was absolutely the worst envelope paper I've ever written on. And I ended up having to pounce them with gum sand rack and spray them with fixative, and it was really difficult. Jack says, I've always been interested in calligraphy, just never had the dedication to practice it. Well, that's what it takes. If you do just want to improve your handwriting, then you would have to sit and work on the parts of it that bother you. If you had, wanted to improve the shape of the capital letters, for example, you would need to sit and practice those. I'm wondering if I start early, who am I going to throw under the bus at the end of my time? Oh, well.
I know.
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
About you, not to you.
All right.
All right. Well, there are broad edge tools and there are pointed tools for lettering, and they produce different types of letters. If you're wanting to do more of handwriting type improvement, then I would recommend getting a fountain pen that's a little bit flexible. The stiff ones will just be more frustrating. And I happen to have one that my daughter got me here that's really beautiful. It's a little dip pen. And the marks that it makes give you a varied line. There's not really a better way to do that. Hey, Tim. Do we have a camera we can angle this way too? Could I put your laptop right there and close it up a little bit? Pardon me while we reset. We were trying to figure out how to do this earlier, and now the fact that we're all indoors instead of outdoors gives me the opportunity to borrow somebody else's laptop.
And while she's going over that, I'm going to just show off one of the unique items that's around here. This is it's a wooden inkwell.
Also a gift from my daughter.
And it's in the shape of a leaf.
Yes.
And she's got a dip pen sitting on it. So this is for sale for $30,000.
That was a gift from my daughter. It is not.
Okay, so it's not for sale.
So tell them to
All right.
watch that window.
Okay, watch the window that says
No,
Tim Joyner on it.
I can make you
Make that
spotlight.
one big and make me small.
All right, I'm replacing the spotlight. So
Okay.
you got the spotlight.
So what I was recommending for someone who wants to improve their handwriting is to get a flexible dip pen or fountain pen, because it's a little more satisfying to write with. You can get thin lines, and you can get, thin lines, and then thick lines on the downstrokes. And it will just enhance your handwriting a little bit. Another option would be a tiny stub nib. This is a 1.5 millimeter calligraphy nib, but a small stub nib will do the same thing. Yeah, my ink is watered down a lot. I washed all my pens last night, didn't dry them out. Sorry, it's upside down, guys. I can't write upside down. But you see that it just gives you a little bit of, are you going to flip?
I don't know. I'm going to see.
That'll make me look like I'm hanging upside down. So this can.
No, I don't think I can. Somebody said that's a really flexible nib.
This is not a flexible nib. This is a, oh, the first one was, yes, that was, that's a vintage gold nib. This one is the stub. So if you just want to improve your handwriting, I would recommend a fountain pen with a very free flowing feed, or like the Pilot Parallel, which has a unique kind of feed, so you can write quickly with it. So as far as calligraphy, most people who use a pointed pen, who are right-handed, will use an oblique holder. And the purpose of the oblique holder is to let you bear down toward your left shoulder. Otherwise, I would be pulling straight and all of the thicks would be in the wrong direction. So yeah, I haven't had my coffee yet either this morning. I'm waiting on it. So this kind of pen lets you apply pressure to the downstrokes.
What's that called when you just ran out of ink there?
The 2 lines?
Yeah.
Railroading. Same
Okay.
thing with a fountain pen as it is with a dip pen.
Okay. Can you fill that in or? Okay.
Yeah, usually.
Okay.
I'll try to do it again. There it is.
You railroaded again.
Yeah, you can fill it in by drawing. If you're really steady, you can do it with another stroke. But because this is really, really wet right here, you would want to wait until it dries a little bit because it'll tear the paper up. Because the paper has gotten soaked with the ink. The other type of calligraphy pen is a broad edge pen, and I've brought a really, really large one so it'll show it better. And there are many things to consider with doing calligraphy. The size of the pen determines the size of the letter. And most hands that you practice, a pen going, will have a rule regarding the number of widths of that pen. So that if you are working with a large pen like this or a smaller pen, the proportion of black ink to white paper is the same.
Is there a way to fill that without dipping it? Because I know in some old
Yes.
architectural drafting, you put it in between the tines.
A lot of people don't dip. I am what people refer to as a dipper and flipper. So I usually, y'all can't see the ink bottle. I usually dip and then shake off the loose drop so it doesn't drop on the paper. But yes, you can take a brush. You can take a brush and load it with ink and then wipe it on the side of the pen this way. Between the area of the pen and the feed, which in this particular case is a folded over design, and there are other designs too. So you're wiping it into the feed.
But the one with the offset nib, you're always dipping that one.
No, you can load it with a brush also.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to teach y'all a trick. Have any of you ever tried to do calligraphy and gotten a hand cramp from holding it too tight? Anyway, there's a trick to stop that. And a lot of people doing pointed pen lettering do that because they call this the death grip. You just can't get used to relaxing and realizing that the pen will make a mark without any pressure at all. I am pushing it and it's making a mark. So if you load it with a brush and you hold the brush in your left hand, it's a lot easier to relax your grip if you're holding something in the other hand, if you're left-handed in your right hand. And sometimes I'll use it to hold the paper down if the paper is buckling or resisting at all. So yeah, you can still load it with a brush, but I'm still a dipper and flipper. All right. So back to the pen widths with broad edge pen. If you are if you're working with a hand called foundation hammer, the lowercase letters are usually 3.5 to 4 pen widths high. So with this size pen, the O is that tall. And if I'm using the smaller pen, That's a better one. The O is that tall, but they are the same proportion, same amount of space inside to the width of the stroke. So if I were working with another hand, like italic, the pen width on the same letter would be 5 to 6. And there's a little bit of slant.
Tell me again why you're doing the squares there.
I'm sure that if you look at computer fonts, you'll see that there are a lot of variations in the angle, the shape, the blackness. They are all the width of the stroke. This one doesn't write as well as a parallel. The width of the stroke is proportional to the height of the letter.
Okay.
So this is appropriate for an italic, lowercase o. And the foundation one, O and I, are essentially chunkier.
Okay. Looks like Nikki has a question. I'm going to unmute her for a second.
Okay.
Nikki, have you got a question? I've unmuted you.
I don't see anything in the chat.
No, I just raised my hand when she asked who was interested in calligraphy.
I asked who was
Okay.
interested in calligraphy.
Ah, okay.
There were 2 or 3 hands.
All right.
Does anybody have a question? In chat? Not yet.
No. I'm kind of keeping an eye on that for you
Thank you.
and asking a few questions because I'm unfamiliar with some of this stuff myself.
Okay. What else do we want to show?
How long have you been doing calligraphy?
I don't have any idea.
Can somebody pick it up and be doing pretty good in a weekend?
No.
So 6 weeks of diligent practice for an hour every night might get you something.
I'm wondering what your opinion is on regular fountain pens for handwriting practice. Lamy 2000. As far as I know, the Lamy nibs that I have are not terribly flexible, but you can always work on the shape. The line variation that you get with a flexible nib or with a stub is more the instant gratification, I think, because that kind of thing just makes your handwriting look better all on its own. Flexible or broad, one is not easier than the other. I will tell you personally, here, I'll demo again in a minute. Personally, I was doing broad edge lettering first. Yes, I will do a word in each style. I bought my first calligraphy how-to book when I was about 12. And at that age, a lot of kids will outline and fill in letters, just copying them. And that's a perfectly acceptable way to get started. But when you learn that the pen can do a lot of the work for you, then that's when your real practice starts. But as far as pointed pen, I hated it personally because I had tried to teach myself. And then I was president of the local calligraphy group, and we hosted a workshop, and the lady was pregnant and coming from out of town. And so somebody had to go out at the retreat that we rented for the workshop And I took one for the team and I've loved it ever since. Just watching somebody do it helped me figure it out. And, you know, I've been doing pointed pen ever since. So you want to see a word in each style. Let me put this back down. I'm gonna drag my husband's computer through the ink a little bit here. I may have to stand up. My stool is not at a very good height. Let's do the other one first. And I'll do the parallel. Sorry, Beth's iPad. I took you very literally. This pen is wearing out. Fine and extra fine flex nibs. I am partial to mediums myself when it comes to fountain pens. So that might be a better question for somebody else. I've always been a little heavy-handed, even though I just was illustrating how I teach people not to be. So I've never really enjoyed fine and extra fine. My favorite pointed nib right now is the Nico G. I've gone through having favorites of principles and 101s and 303s and 404s. But I really like the Nico G. It's great to teach with too because it's not terribly sharp, but it can get really fine hairlines. Extremely flexible. And I think the one that I'm using right here is about worn out. So pushing it is not that easy, but you can see you can get really, really wide swells with it. Even railroaded ones. I also recently bought, I had some vintage nibs and mixed into them was one, pardon my French pronunciation, a mallat, M-A-L-L-A-T, number 12. And I bought a few of those. Haven't played with the new ones yet, but it was kind of fun to find something new to work with. Anything else y'all like to see? They started me early, so I may be talked out for a few minutes. This is not a brush group, but I have a few brushes. Any suggestions, such as books or classes? Oh, for cursive writing? Well, Michael Sull does a class on American penmanship that would be really nice. Could probably help. I do best paper, in my opinion, like I said earlier, if you have to use a specific paper, if a client brings you something that you have to work on, then you just have to adjust the ink. Paper and ink together are what really can give you good or poor results. For pointed pen work, you don't want to use something that is too fuzzy or soft, or I guess marshmallowy, because on the upstrokes you could snag and pick up fibers. And picking up fibers in the point of the pen will give you will allow your pen not allow your pen to make hairlines, because it'll have a big wad of paper dragging around with it. I do like to use, for practice, I like to use Bristol. For finished pieces, if somebody brings me something, asks me to do something for them, I will use a hot pressed 90-pound watercolor paper. One of the things that you can't tell by looking or touching a piece of paper is the starch that's in it. But I know that you all know what a fountain pen on newsprint is like. If you've ever tried to work a crossword or make a note in a newspaper, there is no sizing in newspaper, no starch. And so it allows the ink just to soak into the cotton fibers or the fibers of the paper. And watercolor paper is doubly starched. The pulp in the mush form has sizing in it, has starch in it, and then after the sheet is formed, they put starch on the surface. So watercolors sit up proud on the surface of the paper. They don't just soak in uncontrolled and go everywhere. And the same thing will happen with your ink. If you are working with a good paper with good sizing in it and on it, then you'll have better results. The envelopes that I was talking about earlier, there is a resin that is powdered for the use of calligraphers to work on parchment or vellum, which is skin. It's animal hides. And it's called sandrack, and it's powdered, and you pounce it. I think I have some. Yeah. You can't see it, of course, because it's in a pounce bag, but it's in a little silk bag. And you just apply it to the surface like this. And on vellum, on hides, it would fall into the pores and help absorb some of the surface oils, the skin oil, and allow you to write on it. Otherwise, the oil would repel any kind of ink. So I tried that, and some of the envelopes worked, and then they still didn't. So I sprayed them with a spray fixative, like you would use in a pastel drawing or charcoal drawing, and it helped surface size the paper, and so I had better results with that. Somebody's asking about Spencerian. Are calligraphy letters to your enemies better than all caps texts? Absolutely. You can type it out in all caps and put it in a beautifully addressed envelope. How's that? Do you have that many enemies that you're writing to? Okay, okay. Enough said. Somebody is asking about Spencerian and copperplate. Spencerian and copperplate are two different hands. Copperplate is a type of etching, hand engraving for printing, and calligraphers who copy copperplate are doing copperplate lettering. copperplate style lettering. So Spencerian is a type of handwriting. And let me see if I can find a better working pen than that worn out Nico G. This one might work. So, and a fresh sheet of paper and a fresh spot on here. So I will do my best imitation of both of those. So the engravers, well, we'll start with the Spencerian. Spencerian as a form of handwriting has only the thick strokes on certain letters. Mostly the capitals. This is very poor. I'm not good at historically accurate lettering in this case. So every one of my, and this is bleeding a little bit too. Every one of my downstrokes is only thick because of the pressure of my hand, not because I was bearing down. So the engravers got a hold of this and started doing these elaborate carvings because they were doing it in metal. They didn't have to do it in one stroke, and they could do really thick swells on all the letters. This one, hopefully this one will work better. So every downstroke pretty much on copperplate is, you're not getting sound? Can you hear me? Okay, I thank you. I bent over and Andrew's computer with the sound on is over there. So I'll talk louder. So these engravers were doing all this fancy stuff.
It looks like Sean and Arnie just joined.
Anyway, so calligraphers had to figure out how to draw letters that looked like the things that they were carving. And I do, for most of my envelope addressing, kind of a combination of the two. A little bit of my handwriting and some of the beautiful letters that I have enjoyed doing when I was learning copperplate or Spencerian. And anyway, just kind of mixing them up. And we are down to the last 4 minutes. Does anybody have any quick questions? That's my niece texting me on her way to work. Does anybody have any last minute questions? Thank you, Alvaro. Have you come to our pen show before? No? Okay. Okay. India ink, that's a really excellent question. I never use India ink. Never, ever, ever. India ink is a black ink made with shellac. All ink recipes are very, very secret, so nobody knows what's in everything. But because it has shellac in it, it also has flowing agents in it. and you can barely get the thin strokes. You cannot get hairlines. So I never use India. One of the other things that I did on those envelopes that I was telling you about earlier is that I used gouache to write on them. That is the writing fluid that I use most of the time when something is giving me fits. It is opaque watercolor, and you squeeze a little bit out of the tube and put in a little bit of water. If I'm going to be using it for several days, like this one, then I use distilled water so it doesn't grow anything in the meantime. And
Well, that's what I got this, but yes, he's in. I'm setting.
anyway, it is the least incompatible with paper of anything that I've found. There are a couple of really good, ready to go things to practice with. Sumi ink, Japanese and Korean and Chinese calligraphy ink work really well. And there's an ink called Higgins Eternal that is really good for pointed pen because it's viscous enough to fill in the gap between the 2 points when you press down. Acrylic inks are also good. The difference between dip pen ink and fountain pen ink is fountain pen inks will not clog your fountain pen. And a lot of dip pen inks have things in them that you don't want in your fountain pen, especially if it's vintage. And I think I'm done. Thank you, guys. Especially Alvaro.
Virtual clap, yay.